Daddy, don't talk! Abandoned triplets, save a billionaire after his wife did this. Daddy, don't talk! Zion's whisper cut through the chandelier glow as three small faces appeared in the doorway of the Cole estate dining room. Darius froze, fork hovering over steam. Zara pressed 2 fingers over her lips. Tap, tap, their family's silent code. Zane's eyes flicked to the brocade table runner. Darius followed the glance and spotted a pinhole mic winking red. Upstairs, soft laughter drifted from the bedroom. Savannah's laugh. Darius set the fork down, breathed once, and reached for the linen, casually sliding it to blanket the mic. He didn't say a word. The night had not begun with silence. It began 8 years earlier, loud and bright, when Darius dropped to one knee at homecoming and Atlanta sang with him. Nyla Brooks glowed under stadium lights, and her yes felt like a promise the whole city heard. Then Evelyn Cole texted her 3-vibration code. Now, and Legacy stepped in like security at the tunnel, polite, unmovable, already arranged. In a hallway that smelled like popcorn and concrete, Evelyn and Victor told their son the math of power. The Pierce heiress meant Gates, Capital, and IPO. Love, Evelyn said, is private. Empire is public. Darius walked back out to Nyla with a lie shaped like protection. He asked for space. She gave it with dignity so neat it hurt. A month later, in a bathroom with peeling paint, Nyla stared at 2 pink lines and laughed through tears. Okay then, she told the quiet room. At the ultrasound, 3 little heartbeats flickered like a choir warming up. Triplets, the tech whispered, and Nyla, who always met storms with a grin, said, Lord, you showing out? In midtown ballrooms, Darius married Savannah Pierce under chandeliers made of ice and old money. Cameras popped. Evelyn placed a hand on his shoulder like a crown and acclaim. Savannah smiled a mirror-bright smile that reflected only expectation. Darius signed deals, shook hands, and learned to live in glass. He built an empire that didn't feed him. On the south side, love learned to stretch. Nyla worked night shifts at the clinic, memorized diaper prices, and taped affirmations over a second-hand dresser. Zion dismantled broken radios and made them sing. Zara drew family portraits on junk mail, eyes so true they felt like mirrors. Zane hustled chores for candy money, then used it to buy batteries for Zion's projects. Auntie Rose from church brought casseroles and advice that landed soft and sure. On hot nights, Nyla sang over 3 bassinets, promising what money couldn't, presents. Power, meanwhile, sharpened its teeth. Evelyn whispered dynasty clauses. The board wanted heirs with the right last name. Savannah learned Darius's calendars, then learned how to move around them. Khalil Grant, all cologne and ambition, slipped into the picture as a wellness consultant, then into Savannah's side of the bed when Darius was at late meetings. Marcus, ex-military with eyes like night vision, started logging who entered the mansion when no one was supposed to, and now the triplets stood in the doorway of a house that tried to erase them, saving a father who didn't even know how much of him they carried. Zion edged forward, knocking a bread plate so it clattered. In the fuss, Zara lifted Darius's dish, as if adjusting the setting, and set it just off-center, out of his reach. Zal nudged a sparkling water to his father's hand, then touched his lips again. Don't talk. Darius understood. He didn't speak. He smiled like a man hearing a song he'd forgotten he knew, and in that small, quiet rebellion, the empire trembled. The private chef's hand shook as he dusted supplement powder into the jollof. You didn't see anything, Khalil murmured, teeth bright in the kitchen's steel glow. Upstairs, Savannah's silk robe drifted like a flag in a war only she and her lover were winning. At the gate, 3 kids timed breaths with the sweep of a camera, and slipped through the hedge, hearts drumming a chorus. Somewhere between stove and staircase, fate clicked into place. That morning had started like any other headline day. Darius's face was on every screen in Atlanta. New tower, new fund, new donation to the arts. He watched himself from the back seat, profile reflected against tinted glass. A man people believed had everything. Marcus drove like a metronome, eyes flicking rear view, studying the quiet between words. You ever think about if success is just a louder kind of loneliness? Darius asked, voice low. Marcus didn't smile. I think about exits. Downtown, Evelyn rehearsed lines with PR, all pearls and posture. She wanted him home for dinner. Family optics, she said, and the way she said family sounded like capital. She patted his cheek as if he were still a boy who could be placed on a shelf. Nyla scrubbed in at the clinic, then scrubbed out, wrists sore and spirits steady. The triplets did homework at the break room table. Zion built a tiny motion sensor from spare parts. Zara colored a mural of a city with light in its windows. Zane practiced free throws with a balled-up glove. A news segment flashed Darius's face. Nyla caught the kids watching her instead of the TV. We're good, she said, and they nodded because they trusted her more than the world. By afternoon, rumor moved like humidity. In Buckhead salons, Savannah's name drifted with notes of scandal perfume. Wellness coach, midnight visitor, missing wedding band on Tuesdays. Khalil sent a text that read, only, tonight. Marcus got a ping from the estate's back corridor motion sensor, an anomaly at 3 p.m. He checked camera logs, found a gap where there shouldn't be one. He called Auntie Rose. You see anything off? Just the air, she said, like before a storm. Darius wrapped the day in meetings and silence. He didn't see the way Savannah's eyes lit at the word celebration. He didn't hear the chef mutter, Lord, forgive me, as he stirred the pot. He did hear his mother call him my legacy, and felt a small part of him leave the room. The triplets mapped his commute on a notebook, counted traffic lights. Zion, thinking like a chessboard, guessed the window when guards rotated. We can make it, he told his sisters. Make it and do what? Nyla asked, catching the whisper. Make sure he doesn't eat nothing he shouldn't, Zane said, blunt as a whistle. Neela looked at them a long time, then at the little signal they'd made, 2 fingers over lips, tap tap. She didn't bless recklessness, but she knew God sometimes put children in the path of miracles. If you go, she said, you move like water and you come back like morning, and you keep that sign between you and the Lord. Evening slid gold over glass as the coal estate lit itself like a museum. Chef plated the jollof, hands steady now that he'd chosen a side. His own survival. Khalil checked the vial, then Savannah's lipstick. To freedom, she whispered. Marcus parked, walked the perimeter, felt the hair on his arms rise. He texted Darius one word from a number no one else knew. Careful. Darius stepped into his house, like into a trap, and didn't know it yet. He smelled spices that reminded him of kitchens that had love in them once. He loosened his tie. He thought, just for a second, about calling the woman whose laugh still lived in a corner of his chest. He never cleaned out. At the same time, 3 small shapes pressed through the service path. Zion counted to 7. Zara tucked the don't talk card in her sleeve. Zane placed his palm on the cool stone and whispered, move. Inside, the dining room glowed. Outside, the last of the day's light slipped away. Upstairs, soft laughter. Downstairs, steam lifting from a plate meant to bury a man. And from the doorway, 3 brave children, ready to rewrite a family, with a gesture and a glance. Zion's card flashed once more. Don't talk, then vanished into his sleeve. Darius caught the rhythm of their breath like a code and moved with it. slow enough to look natural, precise enough to matter. He reached for the linen again and dragged it just so, smothering the pinhole mic beneath folds of white. Zara stepped into the room like a shadow and straightened a charger plate. In that motion, she slid his dinner 3 inches out of reach and replaced it with a clean plate from the sideboard. Zane let a water flute tip, glass-kissed marble, chimed, rolled under the table. Darius bent to retrieve it and, hidden, pinched a taste of the jollof to the napkin, tucking the evidence into his jacket pocket. Upstairs, laughter thinned into a hush. Footsteps. Khalil's silhouette stretched down the staircase, wide and sure. "Everything good, Chef?" he called, casual in a way that felt like threat. Chef's eyes found Darius's. The man's hands trembled once, then stilled. "Yes, sir," he said, but his voice carried a prayer. From the foyer, Marcus appeared, smooth as a hallway shadow. He didn't speak. He flicked his gaze from the children to the table, to Darius's hand on the napkin. Darius gave the smallest nod. Marcus's phone buzzed, a perimeter ping that made his jaw set. He texted a word to a number only one person had, now, and Auntie Rose, posted in the butler's pantry, understood. She reached up and twisted the old smoke detector with the sticky battery till it screamed. Sprinklers coughed, then bloomed. Lacework rain fell over crystal and candle, washing spice and fear into a wet shimmer. Savannah's voice cut the air. Silk turned to blade. "What is happening in my house?" Khalil hit the dining room doorway, stopping hard when he saw the children. He tried on a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Lost little ones?" Zane squared his shoulders like a linebacker 2 sizes too small. Darius rose, grey suit darkening under sprinkler rain, and put a father's hand on the boy's back. He still didn't speak. Marcus stepped between Khalil and the table with a towel like a shield, ushering Chef toward the kitchen. "Waterline busted," Marcus said, voice calm as a lullaby. "Everybody out." Savannah's robe clung to her like a scandal. She took in the scene. Mike drowned in linen, kids where kids shouldn't be, Darius's pocket heavy with a napkin that could ruin her, and recalculated. "Auntie Rose," she snapped, "turn this off." Auntie Rose didn't move. "Alarm's stubborn when the Lord wants folks out," she said, deadpan. In the wet bright, Zara's small fingers found Darius's. He squeezed once. They moved as a cluster, Marcus ahead, Darius and the children in the middle, Auntie Rose behind, redirecting like a shepherd. Khalil stepped left to block. Marcus's body language changed by a degree. Khalil felt the military in it and chose to let them pass. He smiled instead, fishing his phone from his pocket and starting a text he'd later deny. Plan B. They cut across the service hall, out through a side door to the garage where rain became night. The security lights hummed on, pale as hospital halls. Marcus popped the back door of a black SUV, and the kids climbed in without a sound, water dripping from braids and lashes. Darius slid into the seat beside them, for the first time close enough to smell their shampoo, cheap and sweet and perfect, and close enough to see himself in their faces without a screen between. Zion held up a portable test strip case he'd stuffed in his hoodie. "Mum uses these at the clinic," he whispered, "for toxins sometimes." Darius unfolded the napkin. The strip browned, then bloomed an ugly color that had no place in food. He felt his chest go tight, then open. He looked at the kids and finally let a word out, soft as a promise. "Thank you." Nyla's headlights flared at the end of the drive, Auntie Rose's emergency call bringing her faster than worry. She stepped out into rain, scrub top under a thrifted blazer, strength like a halo. For a heartbeat, time lined up. The man she once loved, the children between them, the hush of danger not yet gone. She reached for the SUV door, and Zara leaned into her, all wet velvet and relief. Behind them, Savannah's voice rose into the night, performing panic for whoever was listening. "My husband is unstable. He ruined dinner. Her words tangled in the sprinkler rain. Marcus eased the SUV into motion. Darius watched the house shrink in the rear view, a glass museum of curated lies. He remembered homecoming and a promise he'd let die. Beside him, 3 soaked miracles breathed in sync. Ahead, tail lights stitched a path towards something he hadn't had in years, a way out that felt like a way home. The safe house smelled like pine cleaner and new paint, the kind of place meant for a pause, not a life. Marcus swept it first, eyes steady, hands quick, then nodded the family inside. Nyla toweled the kids with hotel white cloths, laughing a little so their teeth would stop chattering. Darius stood in the doorway, damp suit clinging, watching them the way a thirsty man watches rain. "Sit," Neela said, gentle but firm. He sat. Zion popped the latch on his little test kit. "We need a proper lab," Nyla said, already texting. Tasha answered on the first ring. 10 minutes later, a courier in a Navy windbreaker stepped through with a sealed kit and a chain of custody form. Darius handed over the napkin like it was a fragile bird. He signed without shaking. "You may get calls," Tasha warned. "Don't answer unless it's me or Marcus." Nyla poured cocoa into mismatched mugs. Zara's feet swung off the couch, bare toes painting water dots on the rug. Zane paced the kitchen, shoulders wound tight. Darius knelt to their level and kept his voice low. "I should have found you sooner." The apology came out simple. No rich man lawyer around it. Zara tipped her head. "We found you," she said, like it was the most obvious math. On the other side of the city, Savannah wound a towel into a crown and practiced tears before a mirror. Khalil paced the marble like a caged trainer. "We can turn this," he said. Unstable episode. Stress. "You were trying to help." She checked her angle in the glass. "And the children?" "Neighborhood strays. Security breach. We'll spin it." Evelyn arrived at the mansion in pearls and a storm face. She took in the ruined dining room, the dripping runner, the chef sitting on a milk crate with his head in his hands. "What did you do?" she asked Savannah, voice flat as a ledger line. "What your son did," Savannah snapped back, but the edge frayed under Evelyn's stare. In the safe house garage, Marcus opened a cloth pouch. Inside, the pinhole camera Auntie Rose had slipped him, plus a second mic she'd pried from under a settee months ago and kept like insurance. He powered the camera. The feed crackled, then played back fragments. Savannah's robe, 2 glasses, Khalil's hand on her waist. Not enough for court on its own, more than enough for truth. "We'll mirror this to a secure drive," Tasha said, "and I'm filing for an emergency order. She doesn't get near you without eyes on." A soft knock. Auntie Rose slipped in with a Tupperware and the kind of hug that fixed temperature. "Mac and cheese," she said. "Sticks to your ribs." She set another small container by Tasha's bag. "Also found this in a floral centerpiece a week ago. Figured the Lord would tell me when to say something." When Darius took a spoonful, he tasted not just cheese and pepper, but childhood. Some kitchen where someone made something just to see him smile. His eyes went bright, then clear. He reached for his phone, typed a message to his board. "Safety incident contained. Interim protocols engaged. I will brief you with counsel present." He attached a calm headshot and hit send. The company didn't need panic. It needed posture. The kids ate like celebration. Zane finally stopped pacing. Zion asked if the courier drove electric. Zara slid a napkin under Darius's cup, like she worked there. "My mother will come for me," Darius said quietly to Nyla. when the kids drifted to cartoons. For us. She's been coming for you your whole life, Nyla replied. Stand where the wind can't move you. Evelyn's number lit his phone then, the old label, Mom, still attached. He let it ring out. The second buzz came from an unknown line. Marcus checked, then handed it over. The lab. Preliminary. Positive for non-culinary alkaloids consistent with... Tasha translated. It's poison enough. Savannah dialed 911 and made her voice tremble, told a story about a husband unraveling. But the officer she reached had already gotten Marcus's quiet call, and the report read like a puzzle, with pieces missing from her box. Night softened a little. The kids built a fort from blankets that turned the couch into a castle. Darius lay on the floor beside it, shoulder to shoulder with Zane, listening to Zion explain circuits, and to Zara hum the harmony Nyla always found. He breathed, deep and even, for the first time in years. In the space between breaths, a future edged into the room. No crown, no cameras, just a man and his children, and a woman who had carried all three through storms. Darius closed his eyes and let the sound of them settle where legacy used to live. Outside, Atlanta glittered like a city with every window lit, and for once, none of it asked him to perform. By morning, Atlanta woke up talking. At the barbershop on Auburn, clippers buzzed over a low chorus of theories. Cole got played by his own PR, one man said, caped and half-faded. Nah, the barber answered, tilting his client's chin. That house been too quiet to be clean. Marcus sat in the corner like furniture, scrolling a neighborhood thread where somebody's cousin swore they'd seen a wellness coach park in the Cole driveway 2 nights a week. He thumbed a message to Tasha. Breadcrumbs, not bread yet. Across town, Evelyn's pearls clicked like punctuation as she walked into a private dining room already humming with donors. She'd been on the phone since dawn, soothing, smoothing. Temporary separation for stress relief, she told one board member. He's fine. We're fine. Then, with a colder voice to her fixer, if any past companions emerge, I want them handled. The fixer knew who she meant. Within an hour, a draft headline sat in a gossip editor's inbox. Community nurse resurfaces, claims kids with billionaire, clout chase, or coincidence. Nyla was rinsing test tubes at the clinic when her phone buzzed with the link. The photo was old, a college shot where her smile was sun, and Darius's arm was around her shoulders like a promise. The caption felt like a stain. She breathed out slow, set the phone face down, and kept working. She had patience with real fevers. The triplets saw the headline anyway, because the world is faster than mothers. Zara's mouth tightened. Zion's hands got busy. He built a simple face-blurring filter on their shared tablet, more an act of defiance than necessity. Zane snapped a pencil clean in half, and then apologized to the pencil, which made Nyla laugh when she needed to, and the tension in the room loosened just enough to breathe. At the safe house, Darius skimmed the smear, jaw iron. I'm handling it, he told Tasha. No counterslurs. Facts and patience. Tasha nodded. And witnesses who don't look like enemies, she said, tapping the bag with Auntie Rose's recovered mic and camera. We get chain of custody right. We'll be the only adults in the room. Chef showed up an hour later, hat in hand, throat working. Marcus had texted him a single line at sunrise. Tell the truth before it sells you. And it landed. The man's eyes were red rims. I ain't no killer, he said to Darius, to Nyla, to the kids lined shoulder to shoulder. He told me it was a performance blend, said you were stressed. He slid a small, unmarked vial across the table with 2 fingers. It smelled like medicine that don't belong nowhere near food. Neela folded a towel beside him, the small, steady movements that made big things survivable. You came, she said. That matters. Tasha recorded his statement the right way, dates and times, no pressure in her tone. Chef signed, hands steady, now that the worst thing had a name. Marcus queued up the microcam footage from the flower arrangement Auntie Rose had rescued. The screen caught fragments: Savannah's robe, Khalil's gym bag, the faint metallic clink of a tin set where spices should be. Not a full confession, but the edges of one. We pair this with the vial, Tasha said, with the lab report, with Chef's testimony. We stop yelling and let the paper trail do what the Lord built it to do. The gossip site pushed a second piece by lunch, nastier, smiling through its teeth. Comments burned like a brush fire, half defending Nyla, half repeating what they'd been fed. Evelyn watched numbers tick and told herself it was working, then called her fixer again. The nurse's employment. Anything messy? The fixer came back with nothing worse than overtime and awards, which irritated Evelyn more than a scandal would have. At the barbershop, someone passed a phone with a different clip, a neighborhood video of Auntie Rose walking out of the coal estate last night with her chin high and her cardigan soaked, leading 3 kids by the hand. The caption read, "We protect ours." The comments under that one felt like a choir. Auntie, don't play. Free them babies. Family first. That afternoon, the triplets cornered Nyla in the safe house kitchen, all 3 at once, like sparrows. Is he really our dad? Zara asked, voice small but steady. Neela crouched so their eyes met level. Yes, she said. He loved me once. I loved him once. What happened after is complicated and wrong. But love left you 3 as a receipt. Zion processed it like a circuit diagram. Zane felt it like a punch he couldn't throw. Zara leaned into Nyla and let out a breath that trembled. Then she wiped her cheeks with the heel of her hand, practical as her mother. Okay, so we protect him, too. Evelyn's limo idled outside a side entrance to a media building. In the back seat, she rehearsed a different narrative: grace, misunderstanding, the heavy burdens of wealth, until her phone lit with a number she didn't recognize. The lab director, calm as a metronome, informed her that any attempts to influence results would be documented and forwarded to council. Evelyn ended the call without speaking, eyes on her hands. Her reflection looked like a story that had stopped obeying her. That night, Darius watched his children fall asleep under a blanket fort, each face a history he didn't get to hold when it was new. He texted one more message to his board. Contingency plan enacted. Stability is not a rumor. He put the phone down and sat in the quiet, where rumors couldn't live and residue couldn't stick, and let the weight of what almost happened tell him what had to happen next. Morning slid in thin and gray, the kind of light that tells you the day's already serious. Marcus had been up since 4, scrubbing camera logs from the estate and traffic cams on the surrounding streets. A 4-minute gap at 2:13 a.m., right after the sprinklers, too clean to be an accident. He found a ghost reflection in a side mirror. Khalil's gym bag slung low, a silver vial clip flashing like a wink. He saved the frame twice and sent it to Tasha with a note. He circled back. Zion built a folder tree on the shared tablet, labeled evidence, like it was a science fair. Every file got 2 copies in 2 clouds. Zara designed little icon tags, chef hat, flower cam, silver clip, so even Zane could find things fast. We're like Mission Impossible, but with snacks, Zane said, then loaded a backpack with granola bars because crisis burns calories. Auntie Rose arrived with a shoebox. From the pantry, nobody dusts. Inside sat a second mic, a watch-sized tracker, and a folded note in neat handwriting. The Lord don't like ugly. Darius turned the mic in his hand, like a coin from another country. How long? He asked quietly. Months, she said. Folks been collecting your life like stamps. Tasha filed an emergency preservation of evidence notice by 9 a.m., fax and email, both, to Cole Holdings, the Pierce family office, and the estate's management company. "If one thing goes missing now, it's a crime, not a mistake," she said, eyes on the send receipts. She slid a printed copy to Darius. "We don't chase their noise, we document their choices." Savannah made hers by noon. She cornered the chef in a narrow grocery aisle, sunglasses and menace. "I can triple your salary," she whispered, "or make sure every kitchen in this city knows you steal." He backed away, hit a stack of canned peaches. "I told the truth," he said, voice shaking but standing. The store camera watched everything. Marcus pulled the footage within the hour. "God bless surveillance capitalism," he muttered, and Tasha didn't even argue. Evelyn played a grander game. She summoned Darius to a private club where oil portraits watched from paneled walls. A folder lay on the table like a loaded statement. "Dynasty clause," she said. "We lock the family trust, pacify the board, and weather this mess. Signed today, Darius didn't touch it." "That clause disinherits my children." Evelyn's pearls clicked. "It protects the company." He pushed the folder back, slow. "Then the company will learn to live with my children." For a second, something human flickered in her eyes, hurt dressed as rage. Then she smoothed it away. "You're emotional." He stood. "I'm awake." Back at the safe house, Nyla taught the kids a new version of the code. 2 taps for don't talk, 3 for don't move, open palm for breathe. She made them practice it like a game until it lived in their muscles. Zara drew the symbols on index cards and taped them by the door. "We're not scared," she told her mother, chin up. "We're ready." Nyla cupped her cheek. "Both can be true." Marcus found a deleted text on an estate staffer's old work phone, fished out of a drawer he'd insisted they keep. "Dose only works if ingested." Another line later. "Plate must be clean. No cross-contamination." The sender ID bounced through a web app, but the phrasing felt like Khalil. Bossy, careless. Tasha flagged it for the lab. They'd match residue to the vial. "Juries love simple sentences," she said. "Eat equals harm." Darius recorded a message to his executive team with Tasha in frame. Calm voice, clear outline, interim controls, external audit, personal safety matter under counsel. He looked less like a billionaire than a man who finally chose his side. Zion watched twice, then said, "You sound like Dad on purpose." Darius smiled at the title like it warmed a cold room. Mid-afternoon, a church elder stopped by the clinic with pound cake and a prayer that felt like armor. "God didn't bring you this far to leave you," she told Nyla, "but he will require courage at inconvenient hours." Nyla nodded. Inconvenient was their new normal. Savannah and Khalil regrouped in his gym office, all mirrors and metal. "Plan A failed," he said, wiping down a bench that didn't need wiping. "Plan B?" Savannah's jaw worked. "We make him look dangerous. We float a wellness breakdown. We seed doubt about those kids." Khalil pulled a plastic tote from under a desk. Inside, 3 more vials, burner phones, a tablet labeled protocols. He looked too proud of the word. He didn't notice the tiny lens in the smoke detector Marcus had installed last month after a tip from a trainer who owed him. The camera blinked its little red truth. As evening fell, the smear sites tried another swing. An exclusive claiming Darius's long-lost ex had a juvenile record. It died in an hour when readers pulled public records and found church awards and clinic commendations instead. The comments turned. Even strangers get tired of bad lies. At dusk, Darius stood on the safe house balcony with Zane, throwing a foam football back and forth, the arc clean against the purple sky. "What happens next?" Zane asked, catching it against his chest. "We keep telling the truth," Darius said. and we keep each other alive." The boy nodded like a man. Inside, Zion labeled another folder. Zara taped another symbol card. Nyla checked the door twice, then once more, not from fear, but from practice. When Marcus's alert pinged at 8:41, storage unit rented in Khalil's name, keypad accessed, he was already moving. He sent the location to Tasha and Darius with 2 words: "Found something." In a different part of the city, a camera above a roll-up door caught a figure sliding inside with a bag that clinked. The night held its breath, as if the whole of Atlanta knew the difference between a breadcrumb trail and a fuse. The storage facility on the edge of West Midtown was the kind of place that tried to look invisible. Row after row of orange doors, sodium lights that made the night look tired. Marcus parked 2 blocks away and came in on foot, hoodie up, cap low, moving like a man out for a slow jog. He paused at the chain link, counted the cameras, then slipped through the pedestrian gate behind a tenant with a dolly. The keypad log had pinged 8:41 p.m. If he knew Khalil, the man would stay long enough to admire his own reflection in the elevator doors. He wasn't wrong. When the elevator slid open on the 3rd floor, Marcus saw the back of a broad-shouldered man with a gym bag and a posture that said, "Performance." He let the door close, waited a slow count of 20, then took the stairs. Down the corridor, Unit 3C clicked shut. Marcus mirrored his breathing to the hum of the lights and moved until he could hear paper sliding, a box shifting, the little thock of plastic on metal. He pulled his phone, opened the secure app, and hit record through the pinhole mic he'd stuck into the unit's rubber weather strip an hour earlier when a sleepy attendant just needed a smoke break. The feed came through thin but clear, vials knocking, a zipper rasp, the faint rasp of Khalil's voice, reading his own notes aloud, like a coach memorizing plays. Protocol A, dish. Protocol B, beverage. C, aerosol. No, scrap that, risk. Marcus eased back and texted 2 words to Tasha. "He's here." She replied with a pin and a name. A detective on night rotation. She trusted to care more about chain of custody than headlines. "Don't be a cowboy," she added. He sent back a ghost emoji and a prayer hands. At the safe house, Darius watched the dots on the shared location app and tried not to count seconds. Zion had dragged the tablet to the coffee table and pulled up a split screen. Camera feeds from the elevator and the corridor Marcus had hacked earlier in the day, plus a little graph Zara had drawn that translated heart rates into color. Zane paced with the football again until Nyla plucked it from his hands and set it gently on the counter. "Feet on the ground," she said. "He's good at this." Back at 3C, Khalil zipped the bag and turned toward the hall. Marcus melted into a storage alcove, shadow inside shadow. Khalil passed within arm's length, cologne sharp, the gym bag heavier now. Marcus caught the logo on the tote under his other arm, a boutique supplement line, the same one whose invoices he'd flagged in Savannah's personal card records 3 months ago when a housekeeper asked why the pantry kept making room for vitamins. "Evening," Marcus said, just enough to clip the silence. Khalil didn't look up. "Do I know you?" he said, the chin tilt rehearsed. "Not yet," Marcus said. "But you know me if you're smart." Khalil laughed once, short, wrong. "Fans everywhere." "You leave anything flammable in there?" Marcus nodded toward 3C. "Would be a shame if insurance had questions." For the first time, a crack showed. Khalil's eyes flicked to the door, then back. "Mind your business," he said, moving past with a shoulder bump that was more theater than threat. Marcus let him go. You don't tackle in the open field when you've got a warrant warming up on the sideline. The detective met Marcus in a nondescript sedan out front, an APD jacket thrown over a thrifted hoodie. "Unit number?" she asked. Marcus handed her the copied lease, rental payments from a Shell LLC that looped back to a Pierce family retainer, and a thumb drive with the hallway audio. She listened, jaw tightening on the word protocol. Judge will hate the word, she said. Judges hate plans. She made a call that sounded like a favor cashing in and a boundary being honored. Stay out of the building now, she told Marcus. If he cries entrapment, I want you as clean as Sunday shoes. By the time the warrant arrived, Khalil had gone. The night manager blinked at the paper, then at the detective's eyes, and swiped his MasterCard. The door to 3C rolled up slow, like a stage curtain unsure of the scene. Inside, banker boxes with neat labels, protocols, wellness clients, media contacts, and a metal shelf with a lab's worth of small sins. The detective didn't touch a thing until the photographer had danced his flash through every corner. Then she lifted one vial with gloved fingers, read the stamped code, and said, "This looks like felonies." Tasha's phone lit with the photos. She forwarded them to Darius, then to a secure vault, then to herself, because experience was a stern teacher. "This buys us more than headlines," she said. "This buys us time." Savannah, meanwhile, refreshed her phone like it was a rosary, waiting on a reporter to confirm their exclusive. When the call came, the voice on the other end sounded different, flat with new information. "We're holding the piece," the editor said. "There's police activity at a storage unit linked to your associate." The silence between Savannah and the phone filled with something that sounded like fear's older sister. At the safe house, Zara colored the storage unit row pumpkin orange and wrote a tiny label under one door, 3C. "We keep finding crumbs," she said to Zion without looking up, "and then we bake a cake." "What kind?" Zane asked, because he never let a metaphor get away. "The kind you eat on the porch when truth wins," Zara said. Darius put his arm around Nyla's shoulders, a small, careful thing that asked for nothing and said too much. Marcus texted just 3 words when the evidence lock sealed. "We got pieces." Darius read it twice, then looked at his children and thought, not for the first time that week, how strange and holy it was that the smallest hands in the room had steadied the biggest life. On the other side of town, Evelyn stared at her reflection in a dark window and saw a story refusing to obey. She picked up her phone, then set it down, then picked it up again. When she finally dialed, her voice was softer than pearls and harder than oak. "Darius," she said when the line clicked, "come home. We need to talk like family." He looked at the sleeping fort, at Nyla rinsing mugs, at the text from Marcus glowing quiet as a star. "We are," he said, and hung up. Sun rose hard and white, like it wanted everything honest. The lab courier was back at the safe house door before breakfast, chain of custody bag sealed tight. Tasha slid it with a gloved hand and scanned the email that hit her phone at the same time. Confirmatory analysis, chemical family consistent with cardiotoxic alkaloids not present in food. "It's real," she said. "And bad." Nyla's jaw set, not surprised, just steadier. Darius breathed out like a man setting down weight. "We file today." "We file now," Tasha corrected, already tapping. "Emergency protective order, limited contact for Savannah, temporary control of the estate's surveillance by a neutral tech firm, and a request for expedited preservation on anything labeled protocol." She slid the phone to Darius. "You sign, I run." He signed and looked lighter for having something to do that wasn't performance. Marcus returned from West Midtown with a printout of the inventory APD had logged at Unit 3C, vials coded, a ledger of clients, 2 burner phones, and a tablet folder named Protocols, open to a checklist labeled A Dish. "Judge hated the word," he said, deadpan. "You were right." Tasha smirked without joy. Judges hate plans. At Cole Holdings, Evelyn stood at the head of a glass table and lied for sport. "My son is resting," she told directors, who looked like they'd been poured out of banks. "Savannah is concerned for his well-being." "We are addressing a stress reaction," a younger VP cleared her throat. "With respect, ma'am, APD executed a warrant last night tied to Ms. Pierce's associate." She slid a muted headline down the table. The room bent around the word warrant. Evelyn's pearls clicked in the quiet like a metronome counting down the end of a song. Back at the safe house, the triplets had school packets spread across the coffee table like battle plans. Zara had drawn a tiny courtroom with stick figures, one with big hair and a cape labeled TASHA. Zion coded a little animation that turned the word evidence into a lock when you tapped it. Zane, who didn't like sitting, made everyone take water breaks like a coach. Darius watched and learned their rhythms. "Y'all a whole department," he said, half proud, half stunned. "We a family," Zane corrected, and Darius took the check like a man happy to be coached. The hearing happened by Zoom before noon. The judge's voice was blue steel, polite. Savannah's attorney tried the wellness angle, the episode, the unstable narrative. Tasha stayed surgical. "Your Honor, my client's dinner plate tested positive for cardiotoxic alkaloids. A PD recovered additional vials from a storage unit rented by Mr. Grant, who is romantically involved with Ms. Pierce. We've uploaded chain of custody documents and an affidavit from the private chef." The judge read faster than most. "Temporary protective order granted. Ms. Pierce is barred from the residence and all company properties pending further hearing. Neutral tech firm to secure surveillance within 24 hours. Savannah kept her face still on camera, only her eyes moving. Calculation, then rage, then a smile so thin it cut. When the call ended, she threw her phone at a sofa and missed. Khalil picked it up, wiped an imaginary smudge, and said, "We pivot." She stared. "To what?" He shrugged. "Make him look like he's overcorrecting. Whisper takeover chatter, nudge the board." She laughed once, no humor in it. "You think you know rich people?" He bristled. "I know control." Auntie Rose walked into a daytime talk show with her cardigan and her spine. "Why'd you leave after all those years, Ms. Rose?" the host asked. Auntie folded her hands. "Because I won't plate poison or pride." The audience hummed approval. On the timeline, the clip went bright. Underneath, comments stacked like a church choir. "Say that, Auntie. Let the truth season the pot." Darius recorded a 2-minute video to his executive team from the safe house kitchen. Plain background, no logos. "We are fine. We have counsel. We have controls. You have my trust. We will not trade integrity for optics." He didn't mention the children. He didn't need to. He sounded like a CEO who remembered he was also a man. Zion rewatched it and whispered, "He did that." By afternoon, a neutral tech crew, 2 women in polos who looked like librarians and moved like locksmiths, walked the mansion with body cams, tagging and bagging every wire that wasn't where it should be. One mic in the dining room runner was waterlogged and dead. 3 more in the den were crisp and talking. The women smiled the way professionals smile when a problem is solvable. "We'll send imaging by 4, one said to Marcus. "Assume everything is compromised until then." Evelyn tried one last call, voice dipped in honey. "Son, there are ways to close a wound without amputation." Darius looked out at the kids building a Fort 2.0 and answered without heat. "You're right. Start by taking your hands off the knife." He ended the call and sat with the silence, a thing he used to fear and now used like rest. Nyla's clinic called about a teen with a blood sugar crash. She grabbed her bag. "I'll be back by dinner," she told the kids, then to Darius, softer. They know the codes. He nodded. So do I. She paused. You good? He nodded again, different this time. Better when you are. She left him with that, and the room felt warmer just for having held the words. As dusk leaned in, Marcus's alert pinged again. Media monitors flagged a rumor of a hostile bid for Cole Holdings. They're trying to spook the herd, Tasha said, already drafting. Darius tapped out a measured note to investors. No change to governance. External audit initiated. Focus remains on fundamentals. He hit send, then looked at the fort, where 3 heads bent over a flashlight and a notebook. What's the plan? He asked. Same, Zara said, drawing 3 little symbols. Tap tap, don't move, breathe. We stay quiet till it's time to talk. Darius smiled, the kind that starts in the eyes. Then when we talk, he said, we tell it all. Outside, the city hummed like it believed him. Inside, lines were drawn, not in sand that wind could lift, but in the steady hands of a family learning to choose each other on purpose. By noon, the neutral tech crew's report hit Marcus's inbox like a weather alert. High-resolution maps of the mansion, layered with red dots where devices shouldn't exist. 3 bugs in the den, 2 in the master, 1 in the nursery that had never held a child. The installer IDs led to a boutique AV firm on a Pierce family retainer. Marcus forwarded the packet to Tasha with a single line. They mic'd a ghost room, and she replied with a calendar invite titled Chain and Warrant. A PD came first, 2 detectives with careful eyes and clipboards that smelled like carbon paper. They took Chef's statement again, this time slower, letting silence do the work. He didn't wobble. He said, performance blend, Chef repeated, voice steady. I ain't mixed nothing I didn't get handed. The younger detective watched his hands. Did Ms. Pierce direct any of this? Chef swallowed. She set the dinner. He didn't add the rest. The recorder didn't need adjectives. Facts were heavy enough. Nyla moved like a calm pulse between rooms, checking vitals at the clinic by phone, checking the kids' math, checking Darius's face for the small flinch that meant he'd rather answer for the company than ask for himself. Eat, she told him, setting down a plate that tasted like somebody's auntie with opinions. He ate. It wasn't the food he'd nearly died on. That helped. Zion rebuilt the evidence folder tree on the big screen so the detectives could follow it without asking a child to explain it twice. Each icon Zara had designed, chef hat, flower cam, silver clip, sat like witnesses on a bench. Zane handled the door, offering water the way he'd seen Marcus do, learning that hospitality is a kind of defense. Evelyn made her move with a call to the lab, voice low and velvet. We're all eager to put this unpleasantness behind us, she began. The lab director listened, neutral as a ruler, then recited a sentence that sounded prepared for this exact kind of legacy. Any attempt to influence results or process will be logged and provided to counsel, and if necessary, the court. He ended the call, typed a brief memo, and sent it to Tasha, who smiled, sharp, satisfied, without joy. They always call the scientist like he's the maid, she said. Science doesn't mop. Savannah tried a different angle. A telehealth psychiatrist who owed a favor. An affidavit that used words like delusional fixation and paranoid jealousy, all drafted for a judge who might sign an involuntary hold on a busy Friday. Tasha saw it coming a mile away. She'd already filed a competing motion with Darius's clean psychiatric assessment from an independent, joyless doctor who didn't know how to smile in pictures, and therefore was perfect. When Savannah's paper slid across the clerk's desk, the judge had Tasha's packet on top. Denied, the clerk stamped, the sound neat as a gavel in miniature. The board met without Darius that afternoon, and even Evelyn couldn't keep the table from wobbling. A VP from compliance, black woman, hair braided, voice unbothered, raised a hand. We have a process. It is moving. If we overreact, we become the headline. A director cleared his throat to agree. Evelyn tasted the air and found, for the first time in years, that it didn't move on her breath. At the safe house, Tasha lined up cotton swabs, labeled envelopes, and a consent form. "We can wait," she said to Nyla, not quite a question. Nyla looked at the kids, all elbows and eyes, and the particular courage of children raised on truth. "We don't hide from ourselves," she said. Zion went first, solemn as church. Zara squeezed his hand. Zane cracked a joke about CSCI family, and then sat very still when the swab touched his cheek. Darius held his breath like the room might change shape, then signed his own consent with a hand that didn't shake. "Chain of custody," Tasha murmured, sealing each envelope like she was tucking in a story that deserved to wake up whole. Marcus's phone buzzed with a neighborhood ping. Barbershop talk had turned to protection, not gossip. "If Cole's folks need a walk to the car, say the word," someone had posted. The comments stacked up with names and numbers, men offering what they had: rides, eyes, time. Marcus didn't plan to use them. He liked clean lines between help and harm. But he read every name and felt Atlanta show up the way it does when it decides you're worth the gas. Khalil paced in his gym office, Mira watching him fail at looking unbothered. He tried the storage unit again and found a police seal on the door, blue tape across orange steel like a bruise. "We can still win," he told Savannah over speaker, but even the phone sounded bored of him. "Win what?" she asked. "The narrative?" He clung to the word like a pull-up bar. "People believe what you repeat." She looked at the APD press log on her laptop and understood something he didn't. Repetition only works when the other side has no receipts. Evening dragged in a gold light that made everything look true. Darius took the kids to the balcony with a deck of cards Auntie Rose had slipped into the mac and cheese bag. They played spades with rules made to teach and tease, Nyla laughing when Zane talked smack he hadn't earned. "Underbid again and you're washing dishes," she warned. "Bet," he grinned, already reaching for the sink. When the courier arrived for the DNA envelopes, Darius opened the door himself. He handed them over like offerings, every seal perfect. The courier checked the labels, nodded, and tucked them into a lockbox with a thunk that sounded like something final. "Results in 48, he said. "Faster if the system gets out the way." Darius thanked him with a gravity that made the man stand a little taller. People move careful when they feel seen. Night came clean. Marcus set perimeter sensors, did one last loop, then lingered by the couch fort like a guard who liked his post. Tasha drafted 3 motions in an hour, closed her laptop, and let her shoulders drop an inch. Nyla tucked blankets, kissed curls, texted the clinic back with a plan for the morning. Darius sat at the table with a blank page and wrote the bones of a speech that wasn't for cameras or boards, just words he owed his children. He didn't know if he'd read it out loud. He knew he had to write it. Outside, the city shimmered honest under streetlights, not dim, not cozy, clear. Inside, the paper trails were straightening into a road, and for the first time since the sprinklers fell like rain over a poisoned plate, it felt like they might walk it without whispering. By morning, the safe house was bright with a kind of working calm. Tasha spread filings across the table like sheet music. Everyone knew their part. "We have a hearing date on the protective order extension," she said, tapping the docket. "Neutral tech report is in the judge's inbox, chef's affidavit attached. We stay boring on purpose. Boring meant credible. Credible meant safe." Darius rolled his sleeves and recorded a clean, 2-minute internal message from the kitchen island. Plain background, no soft focus tricks. "Team, you may see noise. We are operating. We have counsel, controls, and a plan. Take care of each other. Take care of customers. We'll speak with one voice. Calm and true. He sent it to thousands. Pings came back like applause you weren't supposed to hear. We got you, boss. Proud to be here. Do your thing, we'll do ours. Evelyn tried to redirect the current with a luncheon of donors and directors at a midtown hotel, the kind with napkins folded like swans. Narratives are fragile, she said, smile tight as a bow tie. A junior director, black under 40, eyes wider than fear, said, "Facts don't break." He slid over a printed APD log of last night's evidence intake. Evelyn's pearls clicked once, then stilled. Savannah's camp pushed a gossip exclusive by noon. Grainy photo, claim of a wellness spiral, a faceless friend who used the word erratic. It ran for 40 minutes before a video of Auntie Rose on a daytime talk show ate it alive. "You stayed years." "Why leave now?" the host asked. Auntie looked into the camera like it was a person. "Because a plate ain't love, and a house ain't home if it's built on lies." Clips cut with subtitles sped through timelines. The comments under them sounded like a Sunday choir, and a group chat got together. "Tell it, Auntie. We see you, Miss Rose. Protect them babies." Marcus reached out to an APD friend for a quiet status check on Unit 3C. "Cataloging still in progress," came the reply. "Your guy's meticulous. He labeled his evil." Marcus texted Tasha. He kept ledgers. Tasha replied with a single word: greed, because only greed is cocky enough to organize crime like a color-coded pantry. At the clinic, Nyla snagged an hour between patients and drove to the safe house with a casserole and a look that said she'd seen blood sugar crashes and broken wrists all morning and still had room to hold this. The triplets barreled into her, backpacks bouncing. Zara waved a homework page. "We wrote about a hero," she said. Nyla smiled. "Who?" Zara shrugged with 8-year-old grace. "The person who shows up." Nyla kissed her forehead like an amen. Darius set the casserole on the counter and breathed in cumin and roasted pepper. "Smells like somebody loves us," he said, and the kids echoed the US back at him like a magic word that worked. That afternoon, an investor rumor surfaced on a news crawl. Hostile bid whispers. Tasha didn't flinch. "They think fear can do what poison didn't." Darius drafted a measured note to investors. No process underway. Governance unchanged. External audit initiated. We'll update with findings. We remain focused on the work. He hit send, then called a town hall for employees. Video on, questions open. Somebody asked if they should be scared. "Caution is wise," he said. "Fear is a thief. We won't feed it." In living rooms and break rooms across the city, people nodded and went back to code and contracts and calls. Evelyn made one last elegant mistake. She phoned the lab director again, nudged around words like expedited and community standing. He documented the call, then forwarded it to Tasha with a note that smelled like ethics. Tasha filed a courtesy notice with the court. Potential interference reported. We request the court admonish all parties to refrain from contact. Judges love manners. The admonishment landed on the docket before dinner. Savannah met Khalil in his gym office, mirrors slick with the effort of pretending. "He's still standing," she said, voice thin. Khalil gestured at a whiteboard of angles, like a coach down 3 with a minute left. Push takeover, whisper rehab, leak a fake lab rumor. "We only need doubt." She stared at the blue APD tape across a screenshot of his locker door and knew doubt was hungry, but receipts were heavier. "Do you know what happens when rich people get tired?" she asked. "They buy proof." Evening came gold and honest. Marcus pulled up the neutral tech heat map on the TV. Zion traced the red dots with a finger, one by one, then turned to the kids. "We should do our own sweep at the safe house," he said, serious like a little engineer on a mission. Marcus grinned. "Already did. But I'll let you carry the detector." Zane whooped like he'd won a starting spot. On the balcony, Darius and Nyla watched the sun lay a straight edge across the skyline. "I owe you more than apologies," he said, eyes on the light. "You owe them presents," she answered, "and yourself permission to be a whole man, not just a brand." He laughed, soft and grateful. "That brand been heavy." "Set it down," she said. "It ain't a cross." Inside, Zara arranged forks for 4 and then for 5 and then for 6, like she was teaching the table new math. "We expecting guests?" Darius asked. "We expecting family," she said, easily, and he swallowed against the knot in his throat. The courier pinged. "DNA processing underway. Earliest window tomorrow." PM Nyla squeezed Darius's hand. "Whatever it says, we already know." He nodded, the line of his mouth steady. "We do." He looked at the fort the kids had rebuilt, taller now, with a little sign taped above the entrance in Zara's careful hand. "Do not talk, unless it's love." He laughed, a clean sound. Night settled bright, streetlights crisp, no shadows trying to swallow them whole. On a laptop in the corner, Auntie Rose's clip kept looping, the line about plates and homes turning into a refrain. Image had run its marathon. Truth was catching its breath and finding it didn't need to sprint to win. The courier came back in the bright heat of afternoon, lockbox in both hands, the kind of focus you bring to a baptism or a bomb. Tasha met him at the door with gloves and a clipboard. Chain of custody passed neat between them. She didn't open the envelopes right away. She set them on the table, let the room catch up. Darius stood with his palms flat like he was steadying a boat. Nyla put a hand on Zion's shoulder. Zara laced her fingers through Zane's and squeezed twice. Don't move, just to make sure their bodies remembered calm. Tasha slit the first seal with a letter opener, eyes scanning in a clean left-to-right discipline. Then the second, then the third. She didn't look up until she'd read every line twice. "It's conclusive," she said, voice level. 99.9. They are your children." The room exhaled. Not a cheer, not a sob, something older than both, a release that shook bones and landed solid. Darius's hand came off the table and went to his face. He didn't wipe a tear. He just touched the place it would have fallen, like checking a map. He looked at the kids, at the symmetry he'd only half allowed himself to notice. Dimples, ears, stubborn jaw, and something unclenched in him that had been tight since the tunnel under those stadium lights years ago. Zion stepped forward, chest out like a small knight. "We already knew," he said, but his grin betrayed the thrum in his ribs. Zara pressed her forehead to Darius's, gentle as a promise. Zane tried to play it cool and failed, wrapping both arms around Darius's waist, with a sound that might have been a laugh if it wasn't also a cry. Nyla stood a breath back, shoulders lowering in a way you only see when a woman's had to hold the sky up too long. Darius reached for her, not grabbing, just offering a hand. She took it for a second, then let go, the boundary clean and kind. Tasha slid copies into a folder stamped court, then made eye contact with Darius. "We decide how public to be. The law doesn't require a press conference. It requires paperwork. But the smear machine slows down when truth has a face." He nodded. "We'll speak once. Clear and decent." She liked the word decent. It beat strategy. Evelyn called exactly 7 minutes after the timestamp, hit a system she still assumed was hers to read. "Darius." No warmth, just the shape of his name. "Congratulations," she said, as if the universe had sent a fruit basket. "Bring the children to the house this evening. We'll present them properly. He could hear the capital P. He looked at the blanket fort with its handwritten sign and felt clarity arrive like bright sun. "No," he said. A beat. "This family won't be presented. We'll be present." She inhaled like the air offended her. "You're letting a nurse and 3—" He hung up as gently as a man can hang up on the person who taught him power and forgot to teach him love. Savannah didn't call. She texted a screenshot from a burner, an old photo of Darius and her at an award gala. Her smile was still glass. "We can fix this if you cooperate." Tasha typed back from a legal line. "Further contact will be considered harassment. See order." Savannah sent a single laughing emoji. Khalil, from somewhere with too much chrome, wrote, "Narratives bend. People forget." Tasha didn't reply. She just forwarded the message to the detective with a subject line, "Consciousness of Guilt, Part 3. Marcus used the clean minutes after the lab to check the neighborhood net again. Barbers posted their availability to walk Granny home. Church deacons offered rides. A kid on a bike DM'd a photo of a black SUV that had lingered too long outside the Safe House Street last night. Plate fuzzy, model clear. Marcus shared it with APD and with the kids like a lesson. "People watch because they care," he said, "and because drama's a magnet." "We build our own gravity." Quiet and strong, Darius asked for 10 minutes alone with the children. Neela nodded and stepped out to the balcony with Tasha, who pretended to check emails and actually gave a family a moment. Inside, Darius knelt so he wasn't towering over joy. "I should have fought sooner," he said. "I should have found you." He didn't try to make absence into a noble sacrifice. He took the hit. "I can't give you back bedtime stories I missed. I can give you mornings and math homework and rides and showing up even when it's inconvenient." Zion nodded like a foreman ticking items on a list. Zara tilted her head, reading truth the way she read faces. Zane asked, practical, "You coming to my game?" Darius smiled, small and sure. "Text me the time. I'll be there early enough to carry the water." When Nyla came back in, the kids were seated at the table, 3 juice boxes in a row, like trophies. Darius had a notepad open, writing names. Teachers, doctors, favorite snacks. He didn't write like a CEO delegating. He wrote like a dad catching up. Neela watched him a second longer than she meant to, then set 2 folders down, school forms for guardianship updates. "We can do this clean," she said. "Joint decisions where it matters. They keep my last name. They can carry yours too if they want when they're ready." He nodded, relief and respect in equal parts. "Both fits," he said. "That's the truth of them." The protective order extension hearing came quick, a remote square of faces and statutes. Savannah's counsel tried to float a rumor of DNA mishandling, then discovered the lab director had filed an affidavit with screenshots of Evelyn's calls and timestamps that read like a parable with a moral about hubris. The judge's eyebrows did a brief, unimpressed dance. "Order extended," she ruled. "Ms. Pierce, any further contact through third parties will be sanctioned." On the way out of the Zoom, a notification flashed. The APD press office confirmed discovery at the storage unit of multiple substances. A ledger with euphemistic entries, rest blend, focus mix, and transaction logs tying the Shell LLC back to a Pierce retainer. A reporter tweeted a single line that traveled fast. He labeled his poison. Under it, someone replied with Auntie Rose's quote about plates and homes. The internet loves an echo. Evening called them to the balcony again. The city's edges were sharp and honest, not soft-focused like a brochure. Nyla poured lemonade. Marcus pretended it was whiskey and toasted with his water bottle anyway. "To receipts," he said. "To receipts," Tasha echoed. "To mornings," Darius added. The kids clinked juice boxes, because ritual is just a habit with love in it. Before bed, Zara taped a new sign over the fort, her handwriting careful. Do talk, when it's truth. Darius read it out loud and laughed, not because it was cute, but because it was the instruction manual he needed. He tucked them in under the blanket roof and sat a minute on the floor beside it, listening to the small sounds of sleep beginning. He whispered, not a promise, a plan. Present, on purpose. Across town, Evelyn stared at a framed photo of Darius at 12, braids neat, eyes bright, a science fair ribbon pinned crooked. For a flicker, she remembered pride without PR. Then the phone lit with a director's name, and she put the memory away like a dress from another decade. We must manage this, she said, because control was the only lullaby she knew. And in a gym office with too many mirrors, Khalil flipped a vial cap open and shut and open again, a small, nervous metronome. They'll forget, he told the glass, but the night was clear and the story was writing itself in bold print, and forgetting had no foothold where facts were finally allowed to sit in the light. The smoke detector in Khalil's gym office wasn't much to look at. Off-white plastic, a nick where a careless ladder had kissed it, but the lens inside saw like a witness who never blinked. Marcus parked 2 blocks over, laptop balanced on his knees, and pulled the feed from the cloud he'd hid in a folder named after a boring printer driver. The screen filled with iron plates and mirrors. Then Khalil walked in, jaw tight, phone on speaker. Not worried, he said to whoever was listening. We still got angles. Savannah's voice came tinny and tired. Angles don't beat evidence. Khalil opened a drawer and took out a tote. He unrolled a sheet, protocols stamped at the top, and read to himself. A. Dish. B. Beverage. C. He smirked. Retired. He tapped a vial like a drummer hitting a downbeat. He never would have noticed if those brats hadn't shown up. Marcus stopped the recording, flagged the timestamp, started it again, let it run until Khalil bragged about training the chef and keeping the heiress calm. 1 clean file, chain of custody screenshot. He texted Tasha, Jim I sees all. She answered with a time and a place. Bring Auntie Rose too, she added. Juries love women who don't mince. By 10 a.m., Tasha had drafted a motion to supplement the protective order with new audio and sought a writ to preserve all digital records tied to Khalil's gym. She called a court clerk who liked coffee and clarity and got a rush hearing. We don't yell, she told Darius in the car. We just put receipts on the table and let silence do the talking. Across town, Savannah smoothed a white dress and walked into a charity brunch, designed to rescue reputations. Cameras glittered like insects. She'd coordinated the seating chart herself. Donors with short memories, editors with long lunches, 2 socialites who believed society is what you call it. The server approached with a tray and a folder. Ma'am? For you, Savannah took the papers, assuming a menu. The heading said, Subpoena. The server, a process server in a bow tie, smiled. You've been served. Phones went up like sunflowers. A whisper turned into a wind. Savannah's smile held for 3 long seconds, then broke. She set the folder under her chair like it might crawl away if she didn't trap it. Victor Cole watched the clip on mute in a dark office with shades drawn against good weather. He poured 2 fingers of something brown, then didn't drink it. Evelyn paced. We do not do humiliation, she said. Victor looked at the paused frame of Savannah mid-grimace. We already did. He met Evelyn's eyes. We picked a houseplant and expected roots, she rounded on him. And you expected love to power a public company? He didn't flinch. I expected our son not to die at dinner. For a second, the mask slid. Something like grief, or the first crack of it, moved across her face. He is my blood. Victor nodded. So are those children. He put the glass down and finally took her hand. It's past time we act like it. At Cole Holdings, a floor of assistants paused when Darius stepped off the elevator with Tasha and Marcus. He hadn't been in the building since the sprinklers. He didn't wear armor today, no entourage, no euphemisms. The boardroom smelled like wood polish and expensive patience. Directors straightened their stacks. Evelyn sat at the head, Pearls quiet. Darius took a chair at the side, set a thin folder on the table, and began. Interim operations, stable. Audit, underway. Protective measures, extended. Now leadership. He slid a one-pager to each seat. Effective immediately, we elevate 3 vice presidents to executive roles with operating authority. 3 names, black women who had carried divisions without credit, sat in ink that looked like a future. A gray-haired director cleared his throat. Optics? Darius smiled with only his eyes. Competence. He looked to the new executives. You already run this. Now you get the keys. Evelyn's mouth pressed thin, but she didn't argue. Investors like stability. The women nodded once each, measured, not performative, like athletes who'd trained for a meet they were finally allowed to attend. For the first time in a long time, the room's air shifted and didn't wait for Evelyn to breathe. Back at the safe house, the kids staged a tiny ceremony of their own. Zara presented Darius with a hand-drawn family portrait. Him, Nyla, and the triplets, under a bright ATL skyline. Little speech bubbles that read, "Breathe, don't move, don't talk," with a 4th one added above Darius's head. "Do right." He swallowed, then pinned the drawing inside his briefcase with 2 strips of tape, like a talisman you carry into a storm. Tasha set up a deposition room in a neutral space. No company logo, no family photos, just a table, a recorder, a pitcher of water. Chef sat with his hat in his lap, but his eyes level. I need to say on the record I didn't know what it was till I saw the strips. Tasha nodded. Say it. He did, then signed, and then shook Darius's hand like 2 men who had stood too close to a cliff and decided to step back. APD executed a second warrant, this time at Khalil's apartment and the gym office. They photographed the smoke detector, then the pinhole lens inside, then the drawer that held a folder labeled Media. A detective read a printout, PR contacts, payment flows, a draft pitch labeled Billionaire Unravels, Inside Sources Speak. The inside source column had 2 names. One was Savannah, the other was listed only as EC. Tasha didn't flinch when she saw the initials. Could be anyone, she said, then didn't lie to Darius. Or not. He looked down at Zara's drawing in his case and found a place beyond shock that felt like resolve. We keep moving, he said. We don't make our decisions in their shadows. Savannah met Khalil at a hotel bar with a plan to look unbothered. He arrived with a plan to be obeyed. You'll claim the chef had a vendetta, he said. You'll cry on camera. We'll mention postpartum, something that buys grace. She stared at him. You nearly killed a man who signs checks for half this city. He bristled. We nearly freed you. She leaned in. From what? Consequences? She slid the subpoena across the lacquered wood. We are not the same kind of liar. His eyes flicked to the paper, then to the door. For the first time, he looked small in all that chrome. Marcus walked the kids through a new safety drill in the parking lot. Buddy system, code words, routes out. Zane took it like sport. Zion treated it like a system to optimize. Zara, who hated the idea of danger but loved truth more, asked, Do we have to be brave every day? Marcus squatted so his eyes were level with hers. No, baby. Some days we get to be regular. Brave is just a tool. We don't sleep with it in our hand. She nodded, and her shoulders came down half an inch. By late afternoon, Tasha filed a motion to compel production from the Pierce family office. Your Honor, we seek communications between Ms. Pierce, Mr. Grant, and any representatives acting on their behalf about substances, surveillance, or media strategy. The judge read the neutral tech report, the APD inventory, the gym audio transcript. Compelled, she said, with sanctions if you make me ask twice. The gavel didn't need to fall to be felt. Evelyn's fixer called in a panic. The subpoena list includes your initials. She stared at a window that reflected a woman who had made a life out of polishing reflections. Then I'll tell the truth, she said, surprising herself first. I called the lab. I didn't tell them what to find. The fixer exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for a decade. Sometimes that works, he said. Sometimes it doesn't. Evening spread bright and wide. Darius drove the kids to a public park instead of the balcony, the sky big over a field, with real grass and uneven lines. Zane ran routes. Zion timed sprints and wrote them down like data mattered to Joy. Zara sat with Nyla on a bench and drew the way light made the air look like music. Marcus stood by the fence, half security, half uncle, whole presence. Tasha arrived late with sneakers and no suit, ran one lap, and called it exercise. The kids heckled her kindly. On the way back, Darius's phone buzzed with an unknown number that turned out to be known, a reporter who actually checked facts. "We've seen filings," she said. "We can tell this is bigger than headlines. Do you want to say anything on the record?" He thought of Spin and how cheap it felt next to lemonade on a bench and kids who trusted you to show up. "Say this," he replied. 3 children told me not to talk when talking would have put us in more danger. I'm listening to them and to counsel. The rest will show in court." He hung up and felt clean. Night came clear. Tasha's motions stacked up like bricks in a wall that wasn't glamorous but kept the weather out. A PD processed the gym audio. The board calendar updated with the names of 3 women, finally in charge of things they'd been responsible for all along. Savannah stared at a mirror and didn't recognize the heroine she used to play. Khalil watched the door whenever it opened, and at the safe house, the fort had a new sign Zara taped up before bed. "Don't run, stand." Darius read it and nodded. The counterstrike wasn't loud, it was steady. It didn't need a soundtrack. It had one anyway. Kids laughing under a blanket roof, a city humming outside, and the small, solid click of locks that meant, for tonight, everyone inside was safe. Morning broke loud, horns on Peachtree, a MARTA train sliding by, church bells practicing for Sunday. Tasha picked a courtyard with bright brick and clean sound for a press conference. No podium, just sunlight and receipts. Darius stood in a navy shirt that didn't try too hard. Nyla at his side, the triplets just off frame with Marcus, because kids don't belong in camera crossfire unless there's birthday cake. 2 minutes, scripted to feel like breathing. "Good morning," Darius said, voice even. "Last week, a substance was placed in my dinner. We have lab confirmation. We have turned evidence over to Atlanta police. We're cooperating. We ask for privacy for our children and grace for our people who are doing their jobs under pressure. We won't litigate in headlines. We'll do it in court." He paused, then added what wasn't in the paper. "I'm thankful to be alive because 3 brave kids told me not to talk." Hands shot up. Tasha closed it clean. "That's all today." They walked away, not fast, not slow, the speed of folks with someplace better than microphones to be. By lunch, the clip had 1 million views, not because it was spicy, but because it wasn't. Calm is its own kind of spectacle in a noisy world. Underneath, comments braided praise with stubborn curiosity. "Say less, do more. We see you protecting them babies. Who put the stuff in the food?" Savannah tried to answer that question with a sit-down interview, filmed in a white living room where nothing looked satin. She wore beige contrition and a thin gold cross. I love my husband, she began, chin trembling with technique. He's been under so much pressure. The host nodded like a metronome, then asked, Were you aware of Mr. Grant's storage unit? The question landed like a dropped plate. Savannah blinked. What unit? The show cut to B-roll of police tape across orange steel, then back to her face, remembering how to look surprised. Internet sleuths did what they do by dinner, matched parking garage reflections to her car, highlighted a wellness tote in a photo dump, looped her laugh from a birthday reel over a timestamp from the night of the sprinklers. The interview fractured under the weight of details. Evelyn felt the room shift before the phones did. At a museum donor breakfast, a woman with a lacquered bob patted her hand while moving her own away. We're all praying, the woman said, which is what society says when it wants distance and credit at the same time. Evelyn's smile had edges. She'd spent a career telling rooms what they believed. The room seemed to have beliefs of its own now. Marcus chose his own pulpit, the barbershop on Auburn. He brought coffee and no attitude. What's real? A man under a cape asked, eyes on the mirror. Marcus answered the way men do when they want to be true and leave no prints. He ain't crazy. Someone tried it. Police got stuff in bags with stickers. The barber, clippers humming, wrist easy, nodded at the mirror. You with him? Marcus met his eyes through glass. I'm with Wright. Heads dipped, a low choir of mum moving around the room. The shop posted later, Protect Black Fathers Fighting to be Present. That's the post. Darius did a different kind of public service stop. The church where Nyla keeps the choir folders straight. After weekday practice, he stood in a side room that smelled like paper fans and lemon oil and told a circle of elders what he planned to do. Not the headlines, the house rules. I owe them calm beds and honest answers, he said. An elder with creased hands and a neon usher badge touched his wrist. And you owe yourself rest, son. God don't need you sprinting to prove you thankful. The judge set a midweek session on evidence access. Savannah's counsel tried to keep the mansion as some holy place only she could touch. Tasha read from the neutral tech report like scripture. Your Honor, there are devices in the home picking up voices that don't agree to be recorded. We ask for supervised collection. The judge, tired in the way only a person in charge of other people's worst days gets tired, said, A PD and a neutral technician will comb the property. Ms. Pierce, you may be present but you won't direct. Mr. Cole, you may send a representative. Marcus smiled so slight it barely existed. He loved rules that protected good people from bad behavior. A PD showed early with body cams, the neutral techs in polos and practical shoes. Marcus arrived with Auntie Rose, because nobody catalogues a house like the woman who knew where every extra napkin lived. Savannah opened the door in a dress that wanted to be invited to something else. I'd offer coffee, she said, voice sugar glass. The detective nodded like a person who drinks scope for breakfast. We're good. They found the expected mics. They also found a nest, hidden in a vent near the nursery that wasn't, a tangle of wireless relays like a spider had learned engineering. Savannah swore she'd never seen them. Auntie Rose murmured to Marcus, I dust that vent every Tuesday. Not one Tuesday did I miss. Tasha's eyes cut to the tech's body cam. The woman narrated calm as weather. Device cluster logged. Source unknown. Chain intact. Downstairs, the kitchen gave up a spice tin with residue the color of caution. A PD swabbed and bagged. Chef, called in under supervision, identified the tin like a person naming something he wishes he hadn't touched. That's not paprika, he said. Smells sharp. Like medicine that forgot its license. The detective's mouth twitched. She liked metaphors but loved matches. The lab would do the hard proving. Savannah tried one last performance in the foyer as cops labeled cordage. "This is grotesque," she said, tear-bright. "Our home invaded." Auntie Rose's head tilted, kindness weaponized by truth. "Ain't it, though? If only we could figure who invited trouble in Savannah's lashes fluttered." Auntie patted her arm as though smoothing a stubborn shirt seam. "Lord willing, we will." While the house filled with evidence bags, the city filled with a different kind of proof. A PD's public information officer posted a thread. No spin, just intake numbers, itemized dates, the language of accountability. Darius retweeted without comment. Underneath, a jazz club offered free cover for folks doing right under pressure. A youth football league posted Fathers and Figures Night with a schedule tweak that just so happened to match Zane's game time. The choir dropped a rehearsal clip of total praise that made people cry at their desks. Nyla, who had no appetite for spectacle, still felt the hum when she walked into the clinic, nurses touching her elbow, a security guard promising to sit by her car at closing, a patient leaving a brown paper bag on her desk with a note on top. For the children's snacks, from Ms. Dolores, don't argue. Inside were fruit cups and little bags of chips, and a 20 folded into a triangle. Nyla texted a thank you and cried later where no one had to carry it. Marcus released one curated packet onto the internet. Not gossip, logs. Authorized entries versus timestamps of unauthorized visits, he captioned, anonymizing names and addresses. The visualization was clean and obvious. A blue line, authorized, hugged the x-axis. Red spikes, unauthorized, marched right up to the night with sprinklers. He didn't add a circle around the biggest spike. Folks drew it themselves. That evening, with evidence still clicking into place, like Lego under a careful hand, Darius took a drive alone to a place he hadn't let himself go. The West End block, where somebody's aunt used to feed every kid who rang the bell. He parked, rolled down the window, and breathed. A neighbor recognized him, not the billionaire, the boy with braids who used to carry a beat-up laptop to the library. "You eat yet?" she asked. He smiled. "I could." She wrapped him a plate to go, catfish and green beans that snapped and cornbread that didn't need butter to be generous. He tipped too much. She swatted his hand. "Don't mess up my accounting," she said. "Bring them babies next time." When he got back to the safe house with that warm bag, the triplets were under the fort with flashlights, writing a list headed Family Rules. Zara read it out loud, her small voice serious as a contract. "Tell the truth. Eat together when we can. Don't talk if the room is dangerous. Do talk when your heart is." Zion added, "Back up everything." Zane added, "High fives count as therapy." Neela laughed, a sound so bright it colored the room. Darius set the catfish on the table, and the smell drew everybody like a bell. They ate with their hands. With napkins no one folded fancy. He told them about the neighbor in the West End, about the kids he used to be, about how a plate from the right kitchen heals more than one kind of hunger. Marcus teased, "You gonna cry over catfish now?" Darius said, "Mind your business," and everyone grinned because they were each other's business now, in the best way. Night was crisp, the street lamps clear. On the fort, Zara taped a new card under the others. Do talk, when it's love. Do fight, when it's right. The city outside argued, agreed, scrolled, posted, prayed. Inside, the court of public opinion had a smaller jury, 5 hearts and 2 guardians, returning a verdict that mattered more than trends. Stay human, stay loud about truth, stay quiet about poison, and keep choosing each other on purpose. By mid-morning, courtroom light bounced off polished wood like it wanted everything said plain. Tasha stood with her folder of facts. Savannah sat in beige penitence with a lawyer who liked adjectives. The judge didn't. "Fraud vitiates consent," she said, reading from the code like a recipe. Clandestine surveillance in the marital home. Credible evidence of a poisoning plan by Ms. Pierce's paramour. Media manipulation documented. Cohabitation broken for cause. This court grants annulment ab initio, she concluded, marriage treated as if it never was. The gavel was a soft tap, but it unbuckled a whole future. No prenup leverage, no dynasty clause foothold, no more Mrs. in Savannah's email signature. Savannah blinked once, hard, as if she could hold the life together by refusing to let a tear fall. Her lawyer squeezed her elbow. Tasha didn't gloat. She packed quietly, thanked the clerk like folks raised right do, and slid the certified copy to Darius. "Breathe," she said. He did, deeper than he'd allowed himself in years. Outside, microphones flowered. Tasha lifted a hand. No statements. The clip still went viral. Darius walking past cameras without a single performed emotion. Nyla by his side in a clinic blue cardigan that told the city exactly what kind of woman stood with him now. One who works, one who shows up. Khalil watched that same clip from his gym office, finger-tapping a vial cap open-closed open like a bad metronome. "We pivot," he told the mirrors. "Pressure the asset." The word asset meant Darius. The plan in his head meant something uglier. He called a man who did favors for cash. "Easy grab," Khalil said. "A kid after practice, 30 minutes tops." The man named a price without asking which kid. That told on him. At the safe house, Zion hovered over a laptop he'd built out of cast-offs and will. He turned his phone back on, he said, meaning Khalil. "Pinged in 3 places this week, but keeps returning to the same rectangle near the river." He overlaid dots on a parcel map, a warehouse with faded letters, a yard with busted chain link. Zane peered over his shoulder. "Looks like a place you get tetanus." Zara shivered. Nyla rubbed her shoulder. Marcus leaned in, eyes narrowing at the pattern. "He's setting a stage," he called Tasha, then APD. "We'll bring the play," he said. To the kids, he gentled his tone. "Nobody moves alone, not one step. 2 taps, 3 taps, open palm." The codes lived in their hands now, like muscle memory. Evelyn arrived for her reckoning with the afternoon sun bright on her pearls. She found Darius on a quiet museum mezzanine, where the city spread out below like an open book. For a long beat, mother and son stood with all the expensive years between them. "You embarrassed me," she began, then stopped, the script useless in this light. "You frightened me," she corrected, and that was a truer thing. Darius didn't soften. "You almost buried me," he said, and that was true too. He set a slim envelope on the railing. Call logs, texts, the lab director's memo about her expedite attempts. "No more dynasties, no more deals in rooms I'm not invited to. If you want a son, I'm here. If you want a CEO you can steer, I'm not." Something in her posture loosened, the way a knot does when you finally admit scissors are an option. "I called the lab," she said. "I didn't tell them what to find." He nodded once. "Tell the court that. Then tell yourself why you thought you needed to call." She held his eyes, then looked away, small, human. "Those children," she started. He waited. "Are mine too," she finished, and for once she didn't mean ownership. Savannah packed fast. Passports, a jewelry roll, cash from a safe behind framed abstract art she never liked. The house felt different under the neutral tech's honest light, fewer shadows to hide in. She texted Khalil, "We leave tonight, Cartagena." He replied with a thumb up and a pin. She hesitated, then took the back stair. Late afternoon turned gold and sharp. Tasha laid out the sting with clean edges. A PD in unmarked vans, a decoy SUV, trackers nested inside a duffel that could pass for a team gear bag. "We do not use children," she said, looking dead at Darius. He nodded. "I'll be there," he said. Nyla countered, "You'll be behind the line." They held the stair and found the middle the way grown folks do, when love and fear both have microphones. "Command van," he compromised, headset on. "No cowboy," Marcus smirked. "Amen." Zane's flag football practice ran under bright LEDs, whistles crisp, kids loud in the good way. Marcus took the sideline. Two APD plainclothes mothers leaned on a fence like they were talking recipes. Zion traced the bench with a small device that chirped if anything pinged close. He'd built it from a kit and a prayer. Zara sat by Nyla, sketchbook open, capturing motion and light. Her brother mid-stride, her mother's attentive profile. A man behind the fence whose eyes didn't move like a dad's. She tapped Nyla's wrist twice. "Don't move." Marcus clocked him at the same second. The wrong walk, the wrong stillness. A PD slid to positions without drama. The field kept being a field. Practice ended with a huddle shout. Zane jogged to the car with two teammates, exactly as planned. The duffel went into the trunk with an innocent thunk. Nyla buckled everyone in like any Thursday. They rolled slow, then normal, then merged with city flow. The tail took the bait. Silver sedan, two men, windows just legal. They followed the decoy SUV, loaded with trackers and a mannequin's foot tucked under a blanket to sell the shape, across a bridge to the river district, where the city goes quiet between warehouses and hope. In the command van, Darius watched dots slide across a map, headset tight. His knee bounced, he stilled it with a flat palm. "Breathe," he told himself, and heard Zara's voice in his head, small and sure. Khalil texted coordinates to the silver sedan and rolled himself to the warehouse in a rented SUV that smelled like new mistakes. He checked his watch, checked the door, checked the vial out of habit, as if it could help with a grab. He didn't notice the camera on the lamppost across the street, the one Marcus had convinced a city buddy to test this week. On a brighter block uptown, Evelyn walked into a lawyer's office with floors too shiny and told the truth under oath. "I called the lab. I asked for speed. I did not ask for outcome." The court reporter's keys clacked like knitting needles. It wasn't absolution, it was a step. When she left, she didn't call PR. She called Victor. "I think," she said slowly, "I forgot the difference between protecting a company and protecting a child." Victor exhaled like something grateful. "Fix it," he said, "while it's still fixable." Savannah turned left where the GPS said right, because sometimes flight is muscle memory. She hit traffic. Her hands shook. A red light held her too long with a billboard that read, "Do right." Just a bank ad, but it felt like the city looking her in the eye. She pressed the gas anyway. Down by the river, the decoy SUV slowed by the warehouse, brake lights a calm blink. The silver sedan crept. A PD's unmarked van glided in 2 spaces back. "Stand by," the detective said into the mic, voice flat as a ruler. "Wait for the hand." The plan called for patience, a gloved hand lifting a trunk, a man reaching in for a duffel that didn't belong to him. The moment that transformed suspicion into felony. In the van, Darius's headset crackled, then went quiet, then picked up the faint semitone of a trunk latch. He closed his eyes, saw 3 pairs of brown eyes under a blanket fort, and opened them again, because this was a night for eyes open. Marcus's voice in his ear was steady as church. "We hold the line." He did. Back at the safe house, Zara taped a new card under their code signs before bed, like a little prayer for the road. "Don't fear when we're together." Nyla kissed her forehead and tucked in curls. Zion checked the shared map once, then twice. Zane fell asleep in his jersey, fingers curled like he still held the ball. The city outside hummed electric. Inside, the lights were clear, the corners honest. By the river, a gloved hand reached. The detective whispered, Now! Sirens didn't wail. They popped like bright flashes. Doors, voices, commands laid out crisp. The chapter's last sound was the clatter of a duffel dropping and the scrape of bad plans meeting concrete as steady feet moved in and a family's careful codes turned into action. The hand reached, the trunk lifted, the duffel shifted, and the night clicked. Now, the detective said, voice flat as a level. Unmarked doors flew open with crisp economy. Atlanta police, hands! The silver sedan coughed up two men who looked braver on the phone. One froze, one ran. Both met asphalt and cuffs that spoke fluent consequence. From the warehouse shadow, a third figure ducked. Khalil, hoodie up, eyes wide, pride late. He took 3 steps, saw the lamppost camera winking at him like judgment and stalled. Marcus appeared with APD at his shoulder, steady as a lighthouse. Don't be dumb, he said. It landed. Khalil set the vial down, palms open. They catalogued him like a bad inventory. Burner phone, key fob, gloves, a folded list with 3C at the top, and a scribble. Duffel, trunk, fast. A detective read it, sighed the way grown folks sigh when they're tired of other people's shortcuts, and bagged it for evidence. Somewhere, a river lapped against pilings. The city hummed as if it had been holding breath and could finally breathe. In the command van, Darius listened to calm voices and felt the inside of his ribs unclench. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. Marcus's "We're good" came over the headset like a handshake. Darius closed his eyes and saw 3 small faces under a blanket fort, then opened them to a street where men who meant harm were sitting down like obedient children. He took the headset off and breathed, open palm over his heart. Breathe, the code made muscle. Savannah was late, like always when choosing the wrong thing. She turned the corner toward River District lights and hit a roadblock that wasn't for her until it was. An officer leaned to her window. "Ma'am, license." She handed it over with a practiced tremble and a last-ditch smile. The officer returned with a deputy and a folded paper. "Savannah Pierce? You're under arrest for conspiracy, obstruction, and tampering with evidence." The cuff click was polite and final. She stared up at a billboard that said, "Do right," and tried to remember how to play innocent on cue. The line wouldn't come. By morning, the charges were clean on paper. A PD's press room listed seized items, timestamps, cross-referenced pings. A sentence on the last page said more than the headlines. No children were ever placed at risk during the operation. Nyla read that one twice, slid into a chair, and let relief pull the air from her lungs like a tide. Zara leaned into her side. Zion watched the dots on their map stop moving. Zane, jersey still on from practice, pumped a fist he didn't know where to put. Evelyn and Victor sat at their kitchen table while Son painted the floor, good and honest. The silence hit different. "We made this storm," Victor said, voice low. Evelyn rested her hands on the edge, pearl bracelet still and sober. "We chose image over integrity," she answered, the admission like freefall and landing all at once. She picked up her phone, then set it down, and when she finally dialed, it wasn't PR. It was Nyla. "Ms. Brooks," she began, then stopped, then found a smaller human tone. "Nyla, I owe you an apology that won't fix a thing but might be a start. I hurt your family. I told myself I was protecting mine." On the other end, Nyla listened like a nurse, present, not performative. "Thank you for saying it," she said. "Forgiveness ain't clearance, it's a process. Boundaries come first." Evelyn blinked at a word she used to deploy on contracts, hearing it applied to her own heart. "Understood," she said, and meant it. That afternoon, Darius stood in a small courtroom for a bond hearing he didn't control and watched the man who tried to choreograph his death fidget in paper clothes. Khalil's eyes searched for the old levers, money, charm, speed, and found only chain. Savannah stared ahead, mascara neat, imagining a camera that wasn't there. The judge spoke the way only a person who has heard every version of every excuse can speak. You will have your day in court. Until then, you will not have each other. No contact, no passport, ankle monitors, house arrest. A metal door coughed. The clank echoed like punctuation. When it was done, Darius didn't gloat. He walked out into warm light and found his family. Nyla with a water bottle, the kids with faces bright as verdicts. He crouched and opened his arms, and they filled that space like they always should have. Zara tapped his lips twice, "Don't talk," and then grinned. "Kidding," she said. He laughed, shoulders loose. "No, that's our brand now." They celebrated the way Atlanta always has. On a patio, with smoke curling off a grill, cousins who ain't cousins dealing spades, aunties comparing potato salad like a sport. Marcus commandeered the tongs. Tasha lost 2 hands and swore she let the kids win. Auntie Rose smacked Zane's knuckles when he tried to sneak a rib. "Let it rest," she scolded, and he argued, "Why?" "I'm not a rib," which made the whole table laugh until someone cried. Evelyn and Victor came late, walking slow, neither dressed for a gala, both dressed for being people. Conversations paused, then resumed at a polite pitch. Evelyn approached Nyla with hands empty. "May I?" she asked, meaning a hug but not asking for a pardon. Nyla gave her a brief one and set a reasonable distance back. "You can sit," Nyla offered, pointing to a chair in the shade. Evelyn sat like a woman learning a new posture. Victor joined the domino table and lost on purpose to Zane, who didn't notice and crowed anyway. Darius tapped a glass, just once. "No speeches," he said. "Just thanks." He didn't name the poison, the plots, the annulling gavel. He named the people, the chef who told the truth, the techs who bagged the lies, the detectives who moved clean, the community that walked folks to cars and prayed in church basements and slipped fruit cups and 20s onto clinic desks because love pays in small bills. He didn't say the triplets' names into the phone cameras neighbors held up. He didn't have to. 3 brave kids told me not to talk when talking was dangerous, he finished. I listened. I'm gonna keep listening. Later, as dusk drew a highlighter along the edges of everything, the triplets gave him a gift, a little table tent card in Zara's careful printing, set at his seat like a place marker, DAD-DOTALK, when it's love. He touched the card like it might be fragile, and then tucked it in his wallet behind his ID. Some identities you have to carry on purpose. The next morning, signatures climbed a stack of papers without drama, a co-parenting plan that read like respect, guardian forms updated with all the right names, a counseling schedule pinned to the fridge in magnets shaped like fruit. The kids kept Brooks. They tried on Cole like a jacket they'd outgrow into. At school pickup, Darius stood on the sidewalk where moms measure each other in glances and time. He held a backpack in each hand and laughed with a dad about traffic, as if he had always been there. Some power is a title. Some power is showing up at 3:05. At Cole Holdings, emails went out with new signatures. 3 women promoted to jobs they'd been doing unofficially, now official. The market yawned and went back to spreadsheets. Stability makes for boring business news, which is what a company should want after almost becoming a soap opera. Evelyn walked into a board meeting with a letter in her purse, resigning from the family foundation to repair what money cannot. She didn't read it aloud. She set it on the table and didn't touch it again. Evenings found a rhythm, clinic stories and homework, spades and choir runs, balcony air and couch forts with a new banner, "Do fight when it's right," under the first 2. Marcus taught Zane press coverage with couch cushions. Zion reverse-engineered the baby monitor and turned it into a safe-house intercom. Zara painted everyone's thumbnail a tiny dot of bright so they could look down in scary places and remember home. On a bright Monday, Darius drafted one more public note, short and decent. We'll let the courts finish what they began. In the meantime, we're investing in community safety and clinics that feed and heal, with Auntie Rose as chair, if she'll take us. Thank you for the grace to be human in public. He hit send and felt clean again. That night, when the house had settled and the city's hum was a kind of lullaby, an email slid into his inbox from a sender that wore respect like cologne. Indicative proposal. Strategic combination. The body was 3 paragraphs of corporate charm and 1 sharp sentence. We would consider assuming certain trust obligations in exchange for leadership transition. The signature line belonged to a fund that smiled with a Pierce family bank. Darius read it twice, then looked across the room at the hand-drawn family portrait pinned inside his briefcase. He tapped his lips, twice, don't talk, then opened palm, breathe, and called Tasha. Season 2? She answered, half a joke, whole truth. He smiled into the clear, honest dark. Season 2, he said. Here comes the end of the story. If I was able to make your day, comment Mr. Hope you made my day.